Okay, folks, this is my election special. I've done my homework. I aggregated all the major polls, and I'm going to show you what my findings were. I'm going to start with this. Jason J. Smart. He talks about this is at 11:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 3 minutes until it's election day in the U.S. So happy it's almost over. I think a lot of people feel that way just out of sheer exhaustion. Okay, let's start looking through. Let me frame it, and then we'll talk about the polls. So in the United States, each state, with the exception of two little places in the United States, 48 out of 50 states cast all their votes for one candidate. So if you have 100 in voting one way and 101 voting the other way, doesn't matter which side, who's voting for Harris or Trump here in this scenario, the 101, they get all the electors. So there's, for example, 10 electors in Wisconsin, and 101 means that all 10 go to, let's say, Harris. And then in, let's say, South Carolina has 9, and if they get 101 for Trump, all 9 go to Trump. Okay, it doesn't matter if there's 100,001 to 1 or 101 to 100. It's all go to that candidate. So that's how the system is geared, because the United States means united these nations coming together, and so each state, as a state, throws their support for the candidate of the choice of the people. Okay, now let's start going through the polls and see what's going on here. Forbes says that Harris leads in 5 new surveys as others show a near tie. Okay, let's start with Alan Lichtman. He hasn't changed his view. This is the guy that predicted like 12, 11 of the last 13 or something like that. And he uses 13 different indicators, I think it was, and he hasn't seen any change. As of 7 hours ago, he says, consign them, all the opinion polls, to the flames. Yes, we're going to have Kamala Harris. That is his prediction. Okay, he's an academic who's worked this out in a different way. So that's just tuck that away. Now, when we see things like prediction markets, I like prediction markets. Now, Polymarket is supposed to be maybe over, like, billionaires have maybe tried to tilt it or something along those lines. They're spending their own money. Okay, maybe. Polymarket is predicting Donald Trump at 62 to 30, 62 to 38, is it? Yeah, 62 to 36. So they're wildly predicting. And so let's put Polymarket aside. Let's look at Predicted. I think Predicted's a pretty safe prediction market. Electoral college margin, Democrats and GOP by 1 point difference to the Democrats. Which party wins the presidency? Republican over the Democrats, 56-50. Which presidential election winner? Trump over Harris, 55-51. So a woman elected president, 50-50 split. I mean, it's tough, it's close, but it slightly leans to the Republicans. I think Polymarket is suspect, but Predicted actually might have some validity. Okay, let's look at the next set of polls. We're going to look at YouGov. YouGov has Harris winning Wisconsin, Harris winning Pennsylvania. That's important. I'll come back to why that's important in a little bit. Harris winning Michigan, Harris winning Nevada, tie in Arizona, North Carolina for Trump, and Georgia for Trump. YouGovernment seems to say Harris, 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 Harris. Okay. New York Times, Siena, another very credible poll. Nevada is for Harris. North Carolina is for Harris. Wisconsin is for Harris. Georgia is for Harris. Pennsylvania, tie. Michigan, tie. Arizona for Trump. Okay, that's the New York Times poll. Okay, next. Here's the latest polls from 538. They have Nevada even. Wait, let me see. Pennsylvania, dead heat. Nevada, dead heat. Georgia, up for Trump. North Carolina, up for Trump. Michigan for Harris. Wisconsin for Harris. Arizona for Trump. I think that's been pretty consistent all the way through. Top battlegrounds, Real Clear Politics average. And I'm going to show you where this is going in just a moment here. This is really interesting. Okay. Real Clear Politics average aggregate has Trump for Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan go to Harris, and then Trump for Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. Okay. And then there's electoralvote.com. Electoralvote.com has Arizona for Trump. It has Georgia for Trump. It has Michigan for Harris. It has Nevada for Harris. It has North Carolina for Trump. Pennsylvania for Harris, very important, and Wisconsin for Harris. Okay, now, if electoralvote.com is accurate, then the election goes to Harris. It's 276 electoral votes to 262. But everything depends on Pennsylvania. This is called the blue wall. And if the blue wall holds, right, if that can hold, then Harris wins. If Pennsylvania, look for this, if Pennsylvania turns red tonight, Trump wins the election. I'm pretty sure. I don't think anything's going to change out here. I don't think anything's going to change down here. But yeah, it looks like Pennsylvania is the key to all of this. Now, some of you have asked me things like, okay, well, let's go back and look at this. This is really important to understand. It doesn't really matter what happens in all these other states. So if you're in New York or California, it's reliably going blue. If you're in Florida, Texas, or all these Midwest states, it's reliably going west. And that's why it comes down to all those particular states. Now, I want to show you this. Some of you have said, Dr. Gerdes, I understand your position. I understand that you can't really vote for Harris because of all your other political positions, and you can't vote for Trump because while you're a Republican, he's not a conservative, and so you didn't vote for this and you didn't vote for that. And okay, but why didn't you use your platform to do what you can for Harris? Okay, well, first, I'm conflicted myself, and I couldn't vote for either of them in good conscience. But I appreciate when those of you who contact me say that kind of thing, but you think I have more effect than I have. So here's the thing. I'll get about 25,000 views in an average YouTube video. And now only 1/3 of my audience is American. So that leaves me with I'm speaking only to 8,250 Americans. And then after that, only about 1/3 of my audience are actually on the conservative-ish side. So 2/3 of you, and to your credit, I mean, this is really amazing of you that you're willing to listen. I give you a lot of credit. 2/3 of you are on the left side of the spectrum that listen to me. Okay, that means I'm left with 1/3. That's 2,722 of you that across America are conservative that will listen to me in any given video. Okay, and then of that, about 20% of the population is the swing states. So that's 544 within 7 swing states are who I'm speaking to, right? So that's, I mean, like, so if you look at the map, like, there's only about 544 of you that are in these states that could actually have an impact on the election, right? And then of that, if you divide that by 7, there's 77 of you that could have some impact, and because you're conservative, that could flip and go the other direction, right? The liberals are already going for Harris. The progressives are already going for Harris. So there's 77 of you that could in each state, let's say roughly, I mean, as an average, and no election's going to turn on 77. And I don't have the right to override your preference. Like, I'm not going to force you. I can't do that. And so it's just, it's kind of an overstatement, but I appreciate that you think that I have that much power. I really don't. I mean, an election is a really, really big thing. And you have very limited impact on something as enormous as the presidential election. You have a really significant impact in your local town's election. Like if you live in a town of 50,000, let's say, you have a sizable impact on that local election as opposed to an election where there's 300 million in the U.S. Almost 80,000 had already, or 80 million had already voted in early elections, with another maybe 70 or 80 million to go. So you don't really have that great of an impact there. Okay, I want to point this out, and then we'll show one more thing, and we'll be done. That nervous feeling that you have about tomorrow, Americans, that's democracy working. That's right. because it's so unpredictable right now. And we're going to come back to this in just a moment and talk about what this, I'll show you what my averages showed on the other side of this next video. Okay. Unpredictable elections. What a luxury. The greatest proof of democracy is not knowing the results in advance. That's exactly right. Like we don't know what it is, and that's actually so the real winner here is democracy. That we know that we don't know who it's not predetermined like it is, say, in Russia or Belarus. Okay, um, I think Zelensky made the exact right statement or tone. Ukraine respects the American vote, is ready to cooperate with the next president of the United States, whether it's Harris, whether it's Trump. And here, Andre Yermak is saying this. Greg Terry flagged this morning, and it's awesome. He translates for us, so it's computer generated translation.
This out. Everyone saw that after the UN General Assembly in New York, the president presented a victory plan at the White House, met with VP candidate Kamala Harris in Congress, and then met Donald Trump in New York. I know for sure. I was at all these meetings. The president has a great relationship with Vice President Kamala Harris and with Donald Trump. I can't disclose details, especially before the election, as you understand, but I can tell you for sure it's not just formal. It's a very good personal relationship. And believe me, we returned to Ukraine feeling that I don't believe any U.S. president, as this is purely an American election, whom we respect, would be willing to hand Putin a victory. And none of the presidents would do anything to undermine America's status as the leader of the free world, as
Right. Isn't that great? So he is saying, striking just the right tone. I don't believe any president is going to hand Putin a victory and undermine America's status as the leader of the free world. And yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that Ukraine should be saying, and that should be their tone, and that's spot on. Okay, so I want to go back to this last little picture here with Pennsylvania on the map here and show you from my perspective, this is what I see as I'm looking at this. I see this chart or this little whatever statistically, I see Harris has 16 according to the aggregation of all the polls that I just went through. Harris has 16 from the Times and Real Clear and Electoral and 538 and whatever else. Trump has 14 and there are 5 ties right now. That's where we are. It's that close. And then the percentages of how much Harris has as opposed to how much Trump has or vice versa is so narrow that it could flip either way in almost all the places. I think it's a pretty done deal for Michigan and for Wisconsin. I think both of those states are probably going to go to Harris. And I think it's a pretty done deal for Arizona and Georgia and North Carolina. And it really, 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 really just comes down to Pennsylvania. So this is the Keystone State, ironically. All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. Please put the comments below if you think that I missed anything. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.